I created a fully automated outreach sales system that can either replace a sales team or you can sell this automation for at least $2,000 like I do in my own business, Summit Solutions. So in this video, I'm going to walk through exactly what this automation does and how you can build it yourself. And to start off, I'm just going to demo it so you can see exactly how it works and what it does. So for the client that I recently sold this automation to, we were using HubSpot as a CRM. And here I just have a test account open with one lead, and you can see all we have for the lead information is the name, the company name, and the email. And this is all the information that is needed to run the automation. Now to actually start this automation, I'm going to go to the contact status column, which is a custom column that I created inside of HubSpot, and I'm going to set the status as approved. And when I set it as approved, it's going to automatically enrich the lead, create a personalized email for that lead, and then outreach to that lead with that personalized message. Now this automation only takes about 10 seconds to run, so I'm going to refresh the page and you're going to see that all the information is now updated. We have the job title, the LinkedIn, the location, as well as an AI generated summary for that lead. You can see the contact status is now updated to contacted, and we have that first personalized email here. And this was all done through the automation, which I will show you in just a second. But before that, I'm just going to show you where this lead was added. So it was added to Limlist. Limlist is just an outreach software. You can create email sequences, you can create LinkedIn sequences. I just have a very simple campaign set up here where it automatically sends one email to that lead, and that email is the personalized message you just saw. So if I go to the lead list of this campaign, you can see that lead is now added. And if I click on it and go to the custom variable, you can see that the icebreaker is that custom message that we just created with the automation. If we preview the email, you can see that the icebreaker was replaced with that personalized message. Going back to the CRM, the contact status is automatically going to be updated if the lead responds to that email. Also, the automation will send me a Telegram message telling me that a lead has responded. The reply message will be added here to this column so you can just see it inside the CRM. And the time at which the lead responded will also be added to the CRM. Now, if the campaign finishes with no reply from the lead, the contact status is just going to be updated as no reply. So you can see how beneficial this would be to a sales team, especially if they're doing manual outreach and writing each email that they send to a lead. So everything that I just showed you was done with this one automation. I'm now going to walk through it and show you exactly how it works. Now, if you do want access to this automation, I'm going to leave the template for it in Automator Academy, which is my school community. Feel free to join it. The link will be in the description below. And in addition to the template for this automation, I'll provide a full case study of how I sold this automation, how much I sold it for, what type of clients I sold it to, and exactly how you can sell it yourself so you can get access to both of those things inside of Automator Academy. So starting off, we have a HubSpot trigger. Now to connect your HubSpot accounts, it's relatively simple, but to add a HubSpot node, it's already added to n8n, so you can just search for HubSpot, and you'll see here it has a ton of actions as well as a lot of triggers that you can use. Now the trigger that we are using to start this automation is this one right here, on contact property changed. Because going back to the CRM, when the contact status is changed to approved, we want that to trigger the automation. So once that happens, we're going to get the contact that the status was changed for. So for this example, it would be Dylan from Best Buy. It's just going to pass the lead information over to n8n. After we have the lead information from n8n, we have a set fields node. And I'm going to switch to execution mode to show you better how this node works. So here are the three fields that we are mapping. We are mapping the name, the company, and the status. And you see the output is very simple. So these variables right here, the JSON properties first name and last name, the company, as well as the contact status, is all from this input. And this input is massive just because it has all the lead information, but these are the variables you have to use in order to get that information from the input. So after we have those three variables, we just have an if node, and this is checking to make sure the status of the lead, which once again is this column right here, the contact status column, is making sure that it's equal to approved. because the status could be changed to something else, such as replied or no reply, and we don't want this automation to run if that happens. So this is just a check to make sure the lead is actually ready to be contacted. After the if node, we have an HTTP request node, and here we're using Apollo to search for the company. In this example, Dylan is an employee of Best Buy. So all we're doing is searching for Best Buy inside of Apollo, and Apollo is going to provide us the information for Best Buy in the output column here. After we have the information for the company, we then want to enrich the company. Now I switched to execution mode just to show you better what this node does. So this is the output from the HTTP request node where we search for the company. You see we have information such as the name of the company, the website of the company, the phone number of the company. However, when we enrich the company with this node right here, which the only parameter we're using is the domain of the company, we're going to get even more information about it. So you can see here information such as the industry, the keywords of the company, and if I go down here, we have a variable that we are going to be using later on in this automation, and that is going to be the short description of the company. This is super useful to create that summary. Once again, the summary I'm talking about is this variable right here inside of the CRM. So we'll be using some of this information later on in the automation. So just a recap so far, the automation triggered when the contact status was updated, and then we set these 3 fields just so we can use them later on in the automation. And we're going to be checking this status variable in this next if node to make sure that the status is indeed set to approved. And if it is, we are going to do a company search followed by an enrichment of that company to make sure we have all the relevant information needed for the company of that lead. After that, we have another set fields node. I'm back in executions mode now. So you can see here we created a field called company, and this is going to be equal to the ID of the company. This is from Apollo. Apollo assigns an ID for each company. And what we're doing in this node is because the ID is an object, we want to convert it to an array, because in the next node, which I'll show you in a second, it will be expecting an array for the company. So you can see here the type is set as array, and then this variable here is just pulling this exact ID you see right here and turning it into an array. And the output, very simple, is just the company ID as an array. Now the next node is another HTTP request node. This one we are using Apollo again to search for the lead. Because if you remember, all the information we had in the CRM before it was enriched by the automation was the name, the company name, and the email. So this HTTP request node here is going to use Apollo to get more information about that lead. So you can see here in the parameters, we are providing it with the name of the lead as well as the company. This company variable here is the one we just created with the set fields node. So with the person's name as well as the company they work for, Apollo is going to search for that lead and pick the first results because that first result is the lead that we want. So going back to executions mode, you can see here that once again the parameters were the name and the ID of the company. Once again, this is Best Buy. And then the output is that lead that Apollo found. So we have Dylan Beam. We have information now such as the LinkedIn as well as the title of the lead. And this will be used further on in the automation. Now that was the trickiest part of this automation, these HTTP request nodes, just because we're using Apollo. But now we're going to move on to creating the actual email for the lead. And we are doing this just with an AI agent. So for the AI agent, we want to give it the variables in order to create the email, because how would it know how to create the email if it has no information about the lead or the company? So for the prompt, we are providing the job title of the lead, the company the lead works for, the industry of the company, as well as a description of the company. If you're wondering why I have these parentheses inside of the variables, it's because I'm referencing a specific node for that variable. For example, the company variable here, we have set fields inside the parentheses because we're referencing the company variable from the set fields node earlier in the automation. So that's a neat way just to carry variables from past nodes. We have require specific output format turned on because we are using an output parser, which I'll show you here in a second how to set up. And here is the system message for the AI agent. I said you are a B2B sales assistant that researches a lead and company, then writes a personalized outreach email. I gave it some instructions such as understand the provided person's title and company information, create a one-sentence summary of what the person most likely does for the company based on their title as well as what their company does. And once again, that summary is provided right over here in this column. And this just gives the person running the CRM a better idea of who exactly the lead is. The next instruction I gave it, number 3, is write a 4 to 5 sentence cold email introducing our AI sales and lead generation automation system using that context naturally. Now, obviously, if you're selling something else in your own business, you can change the instructions for the AI agent in order to match your company's messaging. I give it some simple rules, and then I say output JSON exactly as, and then I have the one sentence summary right here, as well as the email message, which is that personalized email. Like I mentioned, we added a parser to the AI agent, and this is just going to be the summary variable, as well as the email message variable. Now the next node, we are setting the fields once again, and I'm going to switch to execution mode to show you better how this works. So all we're doing here is mapping specific variables from earlier in the automation. This information will be used to update the lead information inside of the CRM, as well as adding their information to Limlist, which once again is the outreach software. So the fields we are setting here are the job title, the email, the LinkedIn URL, the city, state, the one sentence summary, as well as the personalized email. You can see these two variables are just referencing the AI agent's node, and you can see the output of the AI agent here. It's just the summary and the email message like we asked it to do. The output is simple, it's just the variables that we asked for. After this, we're doing two actions. First, we're going to add the new lead information to the CRM, which is HubSpot, and then we're going to add the lead information we need to Limlist in order to add the lead to the campaign. So if I add a new HubSpot node to the workflow, this one right here that you see is going to be this node, create or update a contact. So this is the node we are using here. When I open up the node inside of the execution mode, we see here at the very top the email of the lead. This is what it's using in order to identify the lead that it needs to update. So this is just the email of Dylan. And then moving down here, this is all the information that we are adding to the CRM. We're just mapping variables from the set fields node right here. So we have the city, custom properties, which I'll get to in a second, the job title, LinkedIn URL, as well as the state. These custom properties are columns that I added inside of HubSpot. They aren't added by default, so I had to create them myself. This is going to be that one sentence summary that our AI agent created. It's going to be the personalized email, as well as the contact time, which is a complicated variable, but all it's doing here is outputting the date as well as the time. And then lastly, contact status, which we're changing to contacted because we're adding this lead to the outreach software. So when this node runs, that is when all this information gets updated inside of the CRM. Now, besides the HubSpot node here, we are also using a Limlist node, which once again, Limlist is that outreach software that we are using to contact the lead. Limlist does have nodes inside of n8n, so you can just search for Limlist and you'll see all the actions and triggers right here. For this one, we are using an action, and it's just going to be the create a lead action, which is this node right here. Switching to execution mode, all we're doing here is mapping the variables. You want to start by selecting the campaign that you want to add the lead to. So the campaign I have here is just named Automator Academy. So that is the one that I selected right here. Then you're just going to map the email, and then you're going to add these 3 additional fields: first name, icebreaker, and last name. To add those additional fields, it's just going to be this add fields button, and you have all these to choose from. So if you want to send over more information to Limlist, you can do that by adding a new field here. Now the icebreaker variable here is actually that personalized email that we created. Because going to Limlist, you can see in this first email, this is a dynamic variable inside of Limlist. So this variable here is just going to be replaced with that personalized email. So this is the exact email that will be sent to that lead. So that is it for the outreach section of this automation. Once again, when you run this automation, all of this information will be filled out because we are getting the company and lead information, and the contact status will be updated as contacted. Now let's talk about replies, because when somebody replies, we want to make sure that we are alerted, and if they don't reply, we want to make sure that's updated inside of the CRM. So that is done in this second part of this automation. And here we're using two different triggers. So I'll talk about the first one here, which is going to run if there's no reply from the lead. We're going to be using a webhook trigger. The method is going to be post, and the path you can change to whatever you want. All you're going to do here is copy the production URL. Going back to the campaign, you can see here that the last step of the sequence is call an API. This is because if a lead reaches this point, that means they did not reply to any of our messages. If a lead does reply to you, the sequence is automatically stopped, meaning that it will never get to this call an API action. So if it does reach this point, that means there was no response. Going to this call an API action, which you can add just by hitting this plus button and then going to call an API right here. You're going to take that URL that you just copied from n8n and you're going to paste it right here inside of this URL. This is how limlist and n8n are going to communicate when a sequence is complete. However, you want to add this to the end of the URL. This is going to make sure that all the lead information that we need is passed to n8n. So here is what the updated URL looks like, and I'll make sure to add this addition to the URL in the template instructions. From there, we have an if node, and we're going to check the status of the lead. This status variable is going to be passed through as an output of this webhook node. If this is equal to completed, which it already should be because if it calls the webhook in the first place, it means that a sequence is complete, then the workflow is going to continue. So this is basically just a double check. After that, we are just using a HubSpot node, the same type of node we used earlier in the automation, which is create or update a contact. We're going to find the lead we're looking for by matching the email, and then change the contact status column to no reply. So if this node runs, then the contact status column right here is going to be changed to no reply. However, if a lead does reply, Limlist does have a built-in node to track replies. So once again, just look for the Limlist node, go down here to triggers, and then look for the on emails replied node. This is the one that is right here. All we're doing is connecting our Limlist accounts, and the event is going to be emails replied. So when a lead replies to an email, Limlist is going to pass the lead information onto the set fields node, and we're just going to take from that information the email of the lead as well as the reply message. And that's because in this next node, which once again is a create or update contact HubSpot node, we are mapping these variables. So the contact status we are updating to replied. We're adding the date and time of the reply. So that is just done with this variable right here. And then the reply summary, which is going to be the exact message that the lead responded with. This way we have all this information inside of the CRM. So you can see here we have the columns for reply summary as well as replied at, which is the time the lead replied. In addition to that HubSpot node, we have a Telegram node here that's just going to send us a text message that says new reply from and then the name of the lead. And this variable right here is from this Limlist node, because one of the outputs from this node is the lead's name. So that is the entire automation. This basically replaces a full sales team if you optimize it correctly, and you can fully customize it for it to be your own, such as connecting your own CRM, changing the AI agent message, and so on. Once again, you can get access to this template as well as the full instructions for it inside of Automator Academy, which you can join with the link in the description of this video. As well as the template, you will get a full case study breakdown of how I sell this automation in my own business. I've sold this automation as well as similar ones many times in my own business, so the case study will be very valuable to people wanting to sell this automation themselves. And if you just want to learn how to create your own automation as a product business, which is creating productized automations to sell to businesses, that's exactly what you'll learn inside of Automator Academy. Once again, you can check it out with the link in the description of this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.